Absolum is this year's big beat-em-up roguelite, and while the game looks phenomenal, I wish the gameplay could just keep up a little bit with the pace of that amazing art style. In the game, we are a band of lizards trying to save the land from an immortal being, and we must use the magical power of punching, kicking, and grappling in order to do so. The game may be played either single or with a buddy, and it does feature online play, which is something that I wish we see more beat-em-ups have access to. Over the course of the run, you'll decide which one of the different islands to go to and start your punching. At the end, you will have to face the big bad boss and see if you can win. Now, in terms of the look and aesthetics, Absolum is phenomenal in that respect. I really love the almost like comic book style of the different characters. The animation is phenomenal, and the music also works. The first boss theme is a favorite of mine, and this should come as no surprise, as this is the team who also did Streets of Rage 4, I believe. Now, as for the beating and upping, the basics here, so you have a light attack, heavy attack, you can dodge, and you also have access to Arcana. These are basically like your super moves, and you must wait until you have enough magic or mana in order to be able to use them. As you play through, you'll be able to unlock and get access to rituals, and this is kind of the buff system of Absolum that's similar to that of Hades. Each ritual belongs to a different elemental type, and these elements will kind of play in various ways. Wind will allow you to stack up like little hurricane buffs, also allow you to double jump. Fire lets you burn enemies, lightning lets you create kind of like a static charge around multiple characters, and so on and so forth. And if you want to see everything, you must go to all the different islands and complete the various quests. And the questing is part of the meta progression that Absolum is going for. As you explore, you'll find areas that you may not be able to access, or some that will guide you to a specific quest or clue in another part. By completing these quests, you will unlock additional features, such as being able to get more permanent bonuses, unlock said rituals, and other options, such as shortcuts. And when you get through a run, win or lose, you'll earn resources that allow you to add permanent upgrades that affect all the currently unlocked characters. Your tree allows you to unlock buffs such as more health, more starting gold, etc., etc. And you can also unlock additional rituals that can show up. And as you go further down those chains, you'll get rituals that kind of proc or gain bonuses from double elements. And Absolum at its best is when you are just using multiple elements and ripping and tearing through enemies like they're nothing. The combat is very fast, and your main defensive option is the dodge. And the dodge also acts as your parry. If you dodge into an enemy attack just at the right moment, you'll parry the move, and this can either set up enemies to be punished or get you out of the way of a very dangerous attack. And of course, there are attacks that are unparryable. The different arcana that you get access to also allow you to further kind of tilt each character in different ways. But if you're hoping for kind of the depth and differences seen in Streets of Rage 4, or some of the more indie darlings of beat-em-ups like Fire and Rage, Absolum doesn't go that far, and that takes me to kind of like my main issue that I have with the game. While it looks and sounds amazing, the gameplay is certainly a step back from Streets of Rage 4 and some of the other beat-em-ups that we've seen. There are no real combos in this game. You can juggle enemies, and you do get different attacks when you're in the air versus on the ground. But if you're hoping for like a full-on combo system or multiple ways of approaching combat, the game doesn't do that. It's impressive to be able to juggle an enemy until you realize that it's just you mashing lay attack and maybe throwing in a jump attack every like 2 or 3 seconds. And it doesn't really feel like you're given a variety of tools. Each one of the characters does kind of lean towards specific beat-em-up playstyles. You have heavier guys who attack slower, fast ones who of course do less damage, and while this does work on paper, you're still not really changing the moveset, with the only exception that I saw being the kind of marionette character, who they're special or they're heavy, basically is a grapple move that they just kind of like grapple to the enemy and continue a combo. But it didn't feel like these runs were really developing, not in the same way as we've seen with other action roguelikes and roguelites. I mentioned Hades a few minutes ago, and Hades, both of them, do a great job of giving you enough differences that can play out over the course of a run. Which boons you get, which rooms you go to, which infernal arms you get access to. These greatly and monstrously change how you approach a run. In Absolum, there's very few elements that really make you feel like you're playing a different run each time. The different rituals do not change anything about your base properties or how you attack. You're still doing a light punch, you're still doing a heavy attack. The only difference is, does that light attack bring water? Does it bring wind? Does it bring fire? The major upgrades that actually either add a new move to you or modify one of your existing attacks, those only show up after elite and boss fights, which are of course few and far between. And speaking of them, this is where kind of the limited combat system of Absolum gets a little bit frustrating. All elite and boss class enemies essentially have super armor. You cannot stagger them on individual hit. The idea is that you want to go in for punish attacks so that you build up kind of the invisible stagger line. When the enemy crosses that stagger threshold, they'll become stunned, allowing you to get all the hits, combos, and aerials that you want. And then at a certain point, the enemy will kind of auto-recover. But there's a lot of cases where it just didn't feel like it was natural to get an in on some of these enemies, because you have to wait for that parry. And there's also cases where the hitbox or enemy attacks doesn't feel right for a game like this. This is, I think, the only beat'em up I've played where enemy attacks can go beyond the plane that they're on. So the enemy will swipe like horizontal above their line, and it will hit basically above and below the enemy model. And I would have liked a little bit better feedback for enemy attacks when they're coming, when there's a lot of things going on screen. And it can be very hard to read some of the larger enemy tells, as the animation is very fast, and the difference between parrying the attack and taking it can be sometimes a millisecond or less, and your window for the actual parry is very short. And I swear there were times where I was getting the parries but I didn't feel like I deserved them, and times where I felt like I was doing the parry right, and it was just not responding to the enemy. And while the meta progression is nice, once again, it doesn't quite go anywhere interesting with it. Unlocking new shortcuts and new characters are great, but I really want to see more things that can happen or change over the course of a run. If you're hoping for different story beats or learning more about the world that shows up after a run or during it, the game doesn't do that. And this is again one of those titles where it definitely feels like it's designed for a co-op experience first. Just having one more person on the field allows so much more room for combo potential, for distracting enemies, and especially during some of the later boss fights, this can become incredibly painful. And all in all, I kind of left Absolum wanting to see more. If this game had kind of the same depth and character variety of Streets of Rage 4, on top of the buffs and different ways of playing, I think this could have been one of my favorite beat 'em ups in some time. Even just like extension of what they were trying to do with the, I think it was like Dr. X like free DLC, or I think it was a paid DLC, that added in its roguelike mode. Could have been something fantastic. But it still seems like we're chasing that perfect blend of roguelike design and beat 'em up gameplay. So I would recommend this game only if you and a buddy are in the mood to do some magical base beat 'em upping in the near future. And I'm curious to see what the developers will do going forward in terms of what their next beat 'em up will be. Will it be leaning more towards this or more towards Streets of Rage? With that, Absolum was played with a press key. Let me tell you your game for a future streaming review doesn't involve punching, kicking, magic, or lots of elves and goblins. Be sure to get in touch. And with that, be sure to come back for more design talks and game reviews here on the channel, coming very soon. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.